Hello and welcome to episode 257 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always, joined by Evan Silva. We are here to talk about each AFC team and their outlook going forward. Evan, how's it going?
It's going great because on this podcast, we could talk about Urban Meyer.
What a story that is. We will get into that when we get to the Jacksonville Jaguars. As you guys know, each Tuesday this season, Evan and I are going to go team by team, highlighting the most important things we saw from a fantasy perspective and key takeaways. Before we get into it, two things. First, our NBA draft kit is live. Fantasy Hoops is such a great game. If you are playing Fantasy Hoops this season, our draft kit, led by Mike Gallagher's top 150 plus rankings for all best ball formats, Underdog, DraftKings is live. Sleepers, busts, everything you need. Head to the site. It's $34.99. Second, this show is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks.com. I know I've spent a ton of time working on props this season, talking about props. I know a lot of you, though, can't bet them because you're in New York or California or Texas. However, PrizePicks is legal and regulated in those states. You can bet their props in parlay form. We have a table up to compare our projections to PrizePicks lines each week. If you want to give them a try this week, they have a 100% instant deposit bonus up to $100. Make sure you use promo code ETR to get the best deal, or use the link in the show notes. Again, promo code ETR at prizepicks.com for the instant deposit bonus and the best deal. Let's get into it with the AFC and the Baltimore Ravens and its dark days for Tyson Williams, man. I mean, I knew it was bad for Tyson Williams. I didn't think that he'd end up behind the corpses of Latavius Murray, Le'Veon Bell, and Devontae Freeman. Healthy scratch for Tyson Williams. On the bright side of things for the Ravens, sounds like Rashad Bateman is really, really close. I'm excited to watch Rashad Bateman play with Lamar this year. I think you can drop Tyson now. What do you think about Bateman and anything else on the Ravens?
Well, Tyson Williams has clearly the best advanced metrics when it comes to rushing so far with the Ravens, but the Ravens simply feel that they cannot trust him. Mm-hmm. And so that is what led to him going on the bench. I think it just depends on how deep your benches are, in your season-long league. If you have a 5 or 6 man bench, Tyson Williams belongs on the waiver wire. In the leagues that I most care about, my season-long leagues, are 20-man rosters. So I'm not dumping Tyson Williams because I know that things can change on a dime in this league, and that he has enough talent to be an NFL running back. It's the trust factor. Lamar Jackson won this game against Denver, not with his legs, but with his arm. And he is throwing the football at the best clip of his career. I think even in the year where he led the NFL in touchdown passes, he averaged 7.8 yards per attempt. He's at 8.7 yards per pass attempt this year. And he's really put this offense that has crumbled around him on his back. Now we're going to start to see them get a little bit healthier. Some offensive linemen are going to come back. Rashad Bateman is going to jump in there. And I think that the trajectory for the Ravens, I thought it looked pretty bleak, really. I didn't think they looked like a good team in week 1 against the Raiders. And, they have battled back with Lamar Jackson just as their offensive centerpiece. And he's, all these haters and losers that, call him a running back on the internet, they're really eating it. You love to see it going right down their throat.
Oh, yeah. And if Marquise Brown didn't have those drops in week 3, I mean, his passing stats would look even better, obviously.
Absolutely.
Buffalo Bills. Dawson Knox, man. Everybody's talking about Dawson Knox now. We've been talking about Dawson Knox for a while. He finally has his big breakout, 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. Dawson Knox already has 20 targets on the season. How do you feel about him going forward, and anything else from the Bills' absolute romp over the Texans?
Yeah, we talked a lot about him on, I think it was the Friday show last week, and that he needed to be taken seriously because he's absolutely a big part of the passing game. He's one of these guys that had no production in college. I think he had 18 catches and he had 0 touchdowns in his college career at Ole Miss, playing in that same offense as A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf and Jordan Teamu at quarterback. I mean, they were loaded with future NFL players But he was not a big part. He was like a blocker, like a blocking H-back essentially there. He comes into the NFL. He doesn't really do a whole lot in his first 2 years. But, I mean, I think that we've seen his ascension. Apparently he's like real good boys with Josh Allen. These guys are definitely showering together. And he's always been a good athlete. You know, he was a guy that I think that's why they took a flyer on him. The Bills use a lot of analytics, and they took him in the third round, a tight end who had 0 touchdowns in his college career. Just looking at his athletic ability, he could block. That keeps him on the field. Now he's coming together as a big time target in the passing game. So I absolutely think that he's in the mix. And we haven't even seen them hit their peak pass rate yet over the past couple of weeks because they've been winning in routes.
Oh, and they play the Chiefs this week on Sunday Night Football. I mean, they're going to be slinging it against the Chiefs for sure. Cincinnati Bengals played a Thursday night game, and finally, they let Joe Burrow loose. He was an empty a ton, went 14 of 16 for 153 yards with a touchdown out of empty, and that was without T. Higgins on the field. I mean, if they let him do this, and I talked about this on the Thursday Showdown show I did with Dink and Cody, I was like, you can't just assume that they're going to keep coddling Joe Burrow all year. When they let him throw, he is going to shred, especially when he gets T. Higgins back. They're so loaded. The big story, though, is Joe Mixon getting hurt. I don't know how severe that it is. He was already losing a little bit of pass down work. So I think like Samaje Perine comes in and takes a lot of the base work. And then Chris Evans, who they love. I think Chris Evans' hands are so good. I think he plays on a lot of pass downs as well. How would you prioritize someone like Samaje versus some of the other running backs available this week, and anything else on the Bengals?
Yeah, I think it's Kenneth Gainwell and Damian Williams up at the top among waiver wire RBs, and then Samaje Perine and Alex Collins. So like sort of in 2 tiers there.
Yeah.
With Joe Mixon, it was initially reported that he suffered a left high ankle sprain, which we hate high ankle sprains on this show. But then on Monday Night Countdown, Adam Schefter reported that Joe Mixon had a low grade ankle sprain and he's day to day. So that's a lot better news. I'm with you in situations like this. I kind of hope that, especially if I have a guy like Joe Mixon roster, and I just don't want to deal with, a situation like what happened with Dalvin Cook last week, where, he aggravates the injury. You don't know if he's going to play the following week. And then it can become, a 3-4 week situation, if not more. You kind of hope that Joe Mixon takes a week off. The Bengals can work with Samaje Perine and Chris Evans and run their offense. But yeah, that was a big development that, the Bengals, they've been kind of smart. I hated their play calling at the end of the first half against the Jaguars, but they've done some smart things. Number one, Mike Clay pointed out that Jamar Chase was getting shadowed on the outside by Jaguars, and so the Bengals moved him inside to the slot where he could get more favorable matchups. You love to see when teams do things like that. And it looked like the Bengals, who they'd been very conservative with their passing volume in the first 3 weeks, identified the Jaguars as a team that could not rush the passer, and we're not going to really hurt them from a pass protection standpoint. And so they were willing to open it up even without T. Higgins in that game. So I think that sometimes the Bengals do dumb things, but they've done a few smart things recently. So credit where it's due.
Yeah, and I still love Joe Burrow, man. I still think that like in these games,
he looks great.
Yeah, I mean they haven't let him throw for the first 3 weeks, but he's been super efficient. Speaking of inefficient, let's go to the Cleveland Browns. I mean, this Baker game, Baker played like I didn't think he could play that poorly. I mean, he was so he missed Odell for 3 touchdowns. I'll also say that, Kareem Hunt is starting to get goal line work, and that's a big problem for Nick Chubb. 3 carries inside the 5-yard line already for Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb only has 4. And so obviously, like, the pass game work is going to Kareem Hunt. He has a 14% target share. Chubb has a 4% target share. So if you're not getting all the goal line work also, Nick Chubb isn't, you have problems. So obviously Nick Chubb is still going to be fine. He's still going to have some big games. It's just this Kareem Hunt's playing a ton and also playing by the goal line. What you see out of Cleveland's disappointing win, at least offensively, against the Vikings.
Baker was good in the first 2 games, and he wasn't that great in the 3rd game, and then he was awful in the 4th game. And he has this tendency, and he's done this since Oklahoma, to when he starts to feel uncomfortable, he rolls to his right and scrambles. And it's just, it never works. It never, results in like a positive play. And I mean, Baker's just like, it's just like this tendency that he's had for many years. He did it a ton in his second year too. After, you remember, he set the NFL record for passing touchdowns for a rookie. And then in year two, he did it a ton. And, he's been doing it again. He did it so many times against the Vikings. And it's just like the worst play in football. And Odell Beckham was, I mean, you could tell that Odell Beckham was pissed at him.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, he's not really a guy that we were ever high on in fantasy, Baker Mayfield, but we certainly want him out there functioning at a reasonable level for the sake of Odell Beckham, the RBs, et cetera. And he's not doing that right now.
Denver Broncos, unfortunately, Teddy Bridgewater suffered a concussion. And I thought Teddy wasn't playing great in that game, but on the season, he's played really, really well. Now they might have to go to Drew Lock. We'll see if Teddy can get cleared. And Drew Lock's going to be aggressive, but he's just like worse than Teddy. Like I'm pretty confident now he's worse. So I think it's a pretty big downgrade what you see out of the Broncos' first loss of the season.
Drew Lock, well, if you remember, I mean, he actually did have some decent fantasy games last year, but they were almost all driven by garbage time. Like, he cannot move the ball in like neutral script. He can only move the ball when the Broncos are like trying to come back, trying to erase like a 17-point deficit. And he didn't even do that in this game. He was horrible. 5.4 yards per pass attempt, 1 interception, 3 sacks on 24 dropbacks. He is a significant downgrade from Teddy Bridgewater. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams have like the most even 50-50 RB split in the entire league. And, I think it's going to maybe take an injury to Melvin Gordon for Javonte Williams to jump ahead.
Houston Texans, weekly, I think about what we should talk about with the Houston Texans, and I come up with absolutely nothing. This week, they're home against the New England Patriots. I don't think I would want to play anyone, not even Brandon Cooks, if I didn't have to in this spot, although we know Brandon Cooks is going to have like a 30% target share. However, it comes from Davis Mills. Anything to say about the Houston Texans?
No, I mean, the most that I would say, and I've said this for a couple of weeks now, is that I'm into holding David Johnson in deeper bench leagues in hopes that he gets traded to like Baltimore, maybe even like Kansas City if something happens to CEH, or Buffalo, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, something like that. But that's, we're really scraping the barrel here.
Yeah, for sure. Indianapolis Colts, Marlon Mack was on the trade block in week 3, was a healthy scratch. Then they get him back in the mix in week 4, ends up playing 36% of the running back, takes 36% of the running back carries, 28% of the running back targets. I know some of that was after Jonathan Taylor left the game, but just the fact that like they don't want to like give Jonathan Taylor 25, 30 touches in spots where it makes sense. It's kind of concerning. I still love betting on JT. I mean, I had a couple of JT tournament teams, which were good. Obviously he makes huge plays, but if Mac's going to play and Hines is going to play, the floor on JT is going to be a little bit low. First win of the season for the Colts. What'd you see out of them?
Yeah. Mo Alley Cox. I'm always looking for a reason to be optimistic about Mo Alley Cox. So, and, he's given us signs before, flashes. He's really a flash player. And then he just goes back to doing nothing. But I don't know. 69% of the snaps, 5 targets, 2 touchdowns. They like to play multiple tight ends. I mean, they play Jack Doyle, Kylan Granson, and Mo Alley Cox. I don't know. It's probably going to take. It would take a couple of games like this, not two touchdowns, but just the usage rate to really want to latch on to Mo Alley Cox. But man, I mean, if they could ever get him rolling in the passing game, the dude can block. He can win jump balls. I mean, he should be, an extremely productive scoring position receiver. But he'll pop up every once in a while, and then he'll go back to being a dud.
Yeah, Mo Cox played 49 snaps. He only ran 17 routes, but Jack Doyle didn't play very much. I mean, I don't know if something was going on with Jack Doyle. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. Jack Doyle only ran 6 routes in this entire game. Mo Cox ran 17. Let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we'll get to the urban stuff in a second here. I just want to note that with Carlos Hyde, injuring his shoulder and not playing in that Thursday night game, they were like, all right, well, I guess we'll go back to full role for James Robinson. They find out they didn't need Carlos Hyde. They didn't need to spend a first-round pick on Travis Etienne. They could have just given the ball to James Robinson, who they had already and are barely paying him anything. 53 out of 56 snaps, 24 routes on 29 Lawrence dropbacks, 90% of the running back touches, played well as expected, did James Robinson. Also, DJ Chark went down in this game, allowed Laviska Shenault, I think, to get pumped up a little bit. But, man, they played Tavon Austin a ton. And so, like, it's just a mess, man. And when we get to the mess, that is taking a running back in the first round, that is doing all kinds of donkey things, Tavon Austin, Tim Tebow, not caring. Your team's 0-4. You lose the game on Thursday. You fly back to Ohio. You go out partying. And then next thing you know, you got a girl rubbing up against your dick. Like there's a lot of weird stuff going on. And it seems like Urban doesn't want to be here. I don't know. He's getting ridiculed for being a donkey. His team sucks. What do you think's going on with Urban? Do you think he even makes it through the season? And what do you think about the state of the personnel on the Jaguars going forward?
I would have to bet against him making it through the season. I mean, I don't know that I don't think that he staged the situation with the 18-year-old girl or whatever. I don't think he necessarily did that on purpose, but I think that when you're checked out, you don't want to be there. These are the kind of decisions that you make. You stay in Ohio, you don't fly back with the team. You put yourself in a really stupid situation, and you're just kind of like, fuck it. I don't care anymore. We're 0-4. I'm going to go do whatever I want to do. And you're definitely not, committed to the team. I mean, you're not. And so that's what he did. And I don't understand. Just hand it over to Darrell Bevell, because I don't think that the Jaguars are going to be able to figure this out with Urban Meyer at this point.
Okay. Kansas City Chiefs. Two straight relatively slow games for Travis Kelce. I think he's fine. I just want to say he is popping a bit in the age model. Just want to put that out there. Josh Gordon's going to be active for this game. I mean, they have a huge game against the Bills on Sunday night. Josh Gordon is going to be active I wouldn't expect him to play much, if at all. Maybe he takes the Byron Pringle role or something like that. Tyreek goes absolutely ham against the Eagles. What do you see out of the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the interesting thing to talk, the offense is humming again. Patrick Mahomes was devastatingly good against Philadelphia. And, no surprise. Again, looking at his touchdown prop every single week, because he's at 2.5 every week with plus money. And, he doubled that. And I think he's going to have, a lot of 3 and 4 touchdown games over the course of the season. So I'm looking at that every week. But the Josh Gordon situation is – I don't know. The last time that we saw him, he really didn't look explosive. But apparently he showed up with 7% body fat. He's just looking looking like prime Jogo. But I think that initially he's going to just jump into a rotation with McCole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle behind Tyreek Hill, and they're just going to figure it out from there. So, obviously I don't think anybody should be expecting immediate results from him, but I do think that he is worth putting at the end of your bench.
One other note I wanted to make on the Chiefs was I know Clyde Edwards-Helaire's box score looked really good, and I thought he played well, 14 carries, 102 yards, caught a shovel pass for a touchdown from Mahomes, but Darrell Williams' snap rate has been going up and up and up each week, and Darrell Williams played a lot. Darrell Williams had 10 carries in this game, 10 out of the 24 running back carries, and Darrell Williams had a couple targets in this game as well. He's starting to play a lot, so I don't want to go overboard on CH, but he's really playing well. Let's go to Las Vegas Raiders. They get Josh Jacobs back in the mix last night. Pretty big dud from him, but man, this Brandon Staley defense is just suffocating opponents at this point. So I don't want to say throw out the game that they played last night, but I don't want to say I don't want to kill them too bad for the way it went last night. I think a lot of teams are going to struggle against Brandon Staley and this Chargers defense. The Raiders are home against the Bears next. What do you see out of their loss last night?
Yeah, I don't want to kill the passing game of the Raiders too bad, but you could absolutely run the ball on the Chargers in the first 3 games. Josh Jacobs looks terrible. That dude can't break a tackle. He has no burst at all. I understand he's dealing with toe and ankle injuries, but it's always something with Josh Jacobs. And then Peyton Barber gets hurt, and then they barely even use Kenyon Drake, to whom they guaranteed $11 million. So, they deserve credit for, starting pretty fast, in terms of being 3-0. But you got to remember, they won 2 overtime games and they beat a terrible Steelers team. So we still don't know what the Raiders are. But I think we could say confidently that the Chargers are better. The Chargers are right now plus 225 to win the AFC West. And they've beat, in back-to-back weeks, AFC West opponents.
All right, let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers. Really big game for Austin Eckler, who I know when we did the perfect draft, Evan identified as his favorite late first-round pick. Austin Eckler is absolutely shredding right now. They did get 29 running back carries off in this game. Austin Eckler had 15 of them, but obviously in the pass game role, he's going nuts. Still, I know Big Dick Don Parham caught the touchdown. Joke a lot about it. He's still so far behind Jared Cook. Jared Cook ran 31 routes. Donald Parham ran 13. If Jared Cook ever got hurt, though, man, Parham would just go absolutely nuclear. It would be so fun. What you see out of the Chargers, another impressive win for them over the Raiders.
Yeah, Eckler, the big concern on him before the season was that he wasn't going to get goal line carries. The dude's getting, tons of goal line carries. So that concern is removed. Justin Herbert is incredible. His ability to just be so calm in the pocket with guys around him. The Raiders have a good pass rush. They were closing in on him, pretty frequently on Monday night. The dude just stands there like nothing's going to happen. He's like Dan Marino in the pocket. He's an absolute stud, great athlete. The arrow is still pointing up. Like, I don't know. I like the Chargers. The Chargers are like, they have to stay healthy. I don't think that they're an exceptionally deep team, but man, they have the look of a Super Bowl contender.
Miami Dolphins, we talked about this last week with Mike Gesicki. He's listed as a tight end. He's labeled as a tight end. You can play him in tight end, but he's a wide receiver, man. 159 snaps this year. Only 9 of them have been in line. Absolute spark freak, 20% target share, which could be Brissett. Also, shout out Penn State, Mike Gesicki. Still, maybe it'll be different when Tua gets back, but Mike Gesicki right now is absolutely balling. Myles Gaskin, I think the story is kind of similar to Mike Davis. This is like the definition of dead zone running back in season long. You assume the volume is going to be there. You think it is. And the next thing you know, Cordell Patterson and Malcolm Brown and Salvon Ahmed and Wayne Gallman are taking snaps from a guy that you took in the 4th round. If you took a wide receiver or a tight end or a quarterback in the 4th or 5th round, or even the 6th round, that's just never, ever, ever happening. So, just the dead zone running back stuff coming clear. Will Fuller got hurt in this game too. Broke his finger. He's going to miss the Bucs game that's coming up. They also traded away Jakeem Grant. Jakeem Grant wasn't really playing on offense anyways, but kind of narrowing it down a little bit here as we go with Will Fuller breaking his finger. What you see out of the Dolphins, kind of a tough loss to the Colts.
Yeah. Devontae Parker had a good game, but, predicting Devontae Parker good games, I think is going to be difficult on a week-to-week basis. Mike Gesicki is one of the only guys really making plays in the Miami offense. And, as far as I'm concerned, like he should have a stable role week to week because of that. He's averaging 8 targets over his last 2. But still, like this offense with the offensive line problems and, the backup quarterback in there. And it's just, they've got 3 guys, Eric Studsville, George Godsey, and Charlie Fry. No one knows who's calling their offensive plays. Like Trent Dilfer has been saying that it's Charlie Fry. Coaches from other teams believe that it is George Godsey. But they've got 3 guys in that offensive room, and no one knows who's calling the plays. Obviously the Dolphins do, but nobody else knows who's calling their plays. It's kind of a strange situation, and the talent on offense just it's not as good. I don't know. I had optimism that they were going to take a step forward this year, and that the talent is just not as good as I thought it was.
Yeah, and they haven't had Tua, but Tua wasn't playing too well before he went down anyways. New England Patriots. Now, I thought Mac Jones, in a really high pressure, difficult spot with all the Tom Brady stuff going, I thought he played an awesome game. Yep. Like, I thought Mac was awesome. And we actually had a bet on him under 271.5 pass plus rush yards. He landed on 275, but he had to play incredible to get there. I still feel pretty good about the bet. But man, without much receivers, without much explosive receivers, like I like Jacoby, I like Hunter Henry, I like Jonnu Smith, Aguilar, whatever. But he doesn't have like explosive playmakers, and he's still playing really, really well. So I've been impressed with Mac Jones. What do you see out of their game against the Bucs?
Yeah, a couple things. Totally agree with you on your sentiment on Mac Jones. He's going to get a really nice matchup, by the way, this week at Houston. I don't think you can. He's not like his skill set is not one that would really lead to big time fantasy weeks. But this will be a nice matchup for us to maybe see his ceiling and what he can do, what he's capable of doing. The backfield is just an absolute mess. J.J. Taylor has 2 touches, 0 yards, and a lost fumble. See ya. Brandon Bolden, he's the new James White. He's not nearly as good as James White, but that's the role that he's playing now.
Yeah.
And then Jonnu Smith had just a miserable week 3. And then in week 4, Hunter Henry played well ahead of him. Now they still had the same exact number of targets, and they continue to kind of cancel each other out. They did both score a touchdown in this game, but they wind up canceling each other out in terms of like, if you want to play a Patriots tight end, look elsewhere.
New York Jets, Jamison Crowder made his season debut. Jamison Crowder is so good at earning targets. He comes out cold, season debut, runs a route on 74% of the dropbacks, leads the team with 9 targets for a 26% share. That's really good. And he goes 761-1 against the Titans. Jamison Crowder can play, and, you can say what you want about Elijah Moore or Keelan Cole or whatever else, Corey Davis. Jamison Crowder earns targets, and so he's certainly on my radar going forward. What do you see out of the Jets overtime game against the Titans?
Yeah, Zach Wilson made some big plays in this one. He's real streaky, I think. He'll have like 5 bad plays, and then he'll have 2 awesome ones. Michael Carter, I think, is clearly emerging as the Jets' lead back. I think that, but Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson remain involved, and so it's still a 3-way RBBC. But it does look like Michael Carter is at the top of the heap right now. I don't know how much that really means in fantasy. Maybe in a few weeks, we'll be looking at that situation differently. So Michael Carter should be on benches, but. And then Elijah Moore, yeah, so you don't think that, his return, he should be back this week because he had a concussion. Presumably he'll be cleared for week 5. You don't think that that's going to cut into Jamison Crowder very much?
It could. Elijah Moore had chances before Crowder came back and just was not earning targets, and so maybe it can. I think they have their 3 wide receiver set is good though, man. Crowder in the slot and Corey Davis on one side, and Elijah Moore on the other side. That's good. So I think they can have some explosive games. I just love Crowder in general. Pittsburgh Steelers. Chase Claypool sits out this game. Deontay Johnson has a nice game. It's just hard for me, with this version of Big Ben, to see them having huge games, to see them having a 40 brawl. It's just hard for me to see that coming from Pittsburgh. Najee, though, Najee just, no matter how Pittsburgh does it, Najee is so evolved. Goal line, pass game, run game. Obviously, he is an absolute beast. What you see out of the Steelers' ugly loss up in Lambeau?
Ben continues to look done. And, Mark Ross, who was in the Giants front office for a long time and now works at NFL Network, compared the situation to how the Giants, they leaned on sentimentality to keep bringing back Eli at the end of his career, even when it was clear that he was washed. And the Steelers are doing that now with Ben Roethlisberger. Now it hasn't dragged on 4 years like it did with Eli. And I think that this is definitely going to be the final year, but they're going to have to go back to the drawing board big time. Mason Rudolph certainly is not the answer. Dwayne Haskins, certainly not the answer. So they're in a really, really tough situation just as an organization. But I thought that was an apt comparison from Mark Ross. And I remember Mark Ross and Jerry Reese, they wanted Eli Manning out of there. Several years before before Eli finally retired. But it was John Mara, the owner running things, saying that, we need to stick with Eli. And, that did not end well for the Giants over the final 3 or 4 years of Eli's career.
Yeah, I get it. It's tough to say to Ben, hey, you want to keep playing, but you got to play for somebody else. That's a tough thing to do. I get it. Obviously, though, for the sake of the team, they should have moved on from Ben at least a year or two ago, or at least get some plan in place. Like the Packers are out here taking Jordan Love in round 1. I mean, Steelers don't even try to get any quarterback prospects. Last AFC team we're going to do is the Tennessee Titans. I want to note before people look at the box score on the Tennessee Titans, they ran 100 plays, 100 offensive plays they ran in this game. So things are going to look very, very inflated. Still, 16% target share for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Obviously he was disappointment in fantasy and DFS, but man, you get 8 targets, 16% target share from Ryan Tannehill against the Jets. I think at 3,200, it's not that bad. Josh Reynolds, Chester Rogers were also very much involved. But again, they ran 100 plays. We'll see on the status of A.J. Brown. We'll see on the status of Julio Jones. What do you see out of the Titans game against the Jets?
Yeah, the Titans' top 4 leading receivers, or the top 5 leading receivers in week 4 were Jeremy McNichols, number 1, Chester Rogers, number 2, Josh Reynolds, number 3, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, number 4, and Anthony Ferkser, number 5. I mean, they have a real big talent shortage right now. And I think that really helps explain why they would do something, mess around and lose to a team like the Jets.
All right. That is going to do it for this AFC Team by Team podcast. We have said it all. For producer Luke, for Evan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.